I woke up to the roar of bulldozers tearing through my family's farmland. No warning, no permission. The Oak Ridge Estates HO had decided, without a shred of hesitation, to plunk their shiny new bus stop right on my property, ignoring boundaries my family had honored for 3 generations. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have guessed, was that I'd spent the last 15 years as the county senior zoning inspector. I wondered how far they'd push to defend their illegal stunt once they realized they'd stepped into a career-ending mess. I could still feel my grandfather's rough, calloused hands as he taught me how to tend this land. Our 40-acre farm had been ours since 1937, when he built the homestead with nothing but grit and his bare hands. 3 generations had worked the soil, raised livestock, and kept our independence alive. For 20 years, my mornings had followed the same rhythm, up at 5 a.m. to feed the animals and check the fences before heading to my county job. But last Tuesday broke that rhythm. I was in the barn when I heard it, the growl of heavy machinery where it didn't belong. I bolted outside and saw a bulldozer ripping up my driveway entrance. 2 workers in yellow vests were staking out lines, while another unloaded lumber from a truck. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled, my voice shaking with fury. The foreman barely glanced up from his clipboard. "HOA project. Bus stop construction," he muttered. "This is private property, my property," I shot back. He smirked and shoved a paper at me, stamped with the Oak Ridge Estates HOA letterhead. "All approved. Right here," he said. I scanned it, my blood boiling. "This doesn't give you permission to build on my land." He shrugged. "We're just following orders. Take it up with the HOA." I planted myself in front of the bulldozer. "Not happening. Pack up and leave, or I'm calling the sheriff." The workers traded uneasy looks, clearly not expecting a fight. After a tense call with their supervisor, they grudgingly loaded up and left. "We'll be back tomorrow with proper authorization," the foreman warned as they drove off. This is happening, like it or not. It was a fleeting win, but I knew the war had just started. I spent the rest of the day leaving voicemails for the HOA president, Richard Carter. That went unanswered. I pored over property maps and local laws, gearing up for round 2. But nothing prepared me for what came next. At 7:15 a.m. the following morning, I stepped onto my porch, coffee in hand, and froze. SUVs were parked on my hayfield, and a gaggle of kids stood at the end of my driveway. A yellow school bus rolled up, its stop sign swinging out as the children lined up, right where the bulldozer had been the day before. There was no bus stop, no structure, yet somehow it was already official. "Excuse me," I called, striding toward them. "This is private property. There's no bus stop here." A mom in fancy yoga pants glared at me. "The HOA emailed us. This is the new stop." "No, ma'am, it's not. This is my driveway, and no one's allowed here." Kids gawked as parents pulled them close. Another dad piped up, "We're just following instructions." The old stop was too far. The bus driver scratched his head. "I was told to add the stop today." I was keeping my cool when I noticed water bubbling up where the SUV sat. They'd crushed my irrigation line, promising thousands in repairs. After the bus left, I walked the property and spotted new survey markers 10 feet inside my land that weren't there yesterday. Someone had crept in overnight, staking a claim. Back inside, I dissected the HOA's document. There it was. They'd labeled my driveway a community common area, despite county records proving it was mine. This wasn't just trespassing, it was a calculated grab. I'd clashed with Oak Ridge Estates before, 5 years back when they built next door. They'd nagged me about my tractor being an eyesore and my barn needing a paint job to match their standards. I'd ignored them, my land wasn't theirs to boss around. But this? This was war. As the county senior zoning inspector, I had access to records most couldn't touch. Oak Ridge Estates had a shady past. They'd tried to swallow up 3 nearby properties through boundary adjustments. 2 elderly owners caved under legal pressure, the third held out until they died, and their kids sold to an HOA-linked developer. The president, Richard Carter, was a failed real estate mogul who'd gone bust in the housing crash. Now he wielded the HOA like his personal kingdom. That night, my neighbor Henry Brooks, whose farm sits south of mine, called. They tried that with me last year, he said. Claimed my pond messed up their golf course drainage. Sent cease and desist letters for months. How'd you fight it? I asked. Lawyer cost me 15 grand, but I kept my pond. Watch yourself, James, they played dirty. By night's end, I'd uncovered 7 other owners they'd harassed. Some folded. But this bus stop reeked of something bigger, more ruthless. I wasn't just defending my land anymore. I was fighting for everyone they'd strong-armed. The next day at noon, a sleek black SUV rolled up. A woman in a crisp suit stepped out, heels sinking into the dirt. Mr. Parker, she called, clutching a portfolio. I'm Melissa Hayes, Community Relations Director for Oak Ridge Estates. I was mending a fence post, but straightened up. I know why you're here. She eyed the spot where kids had gathered that morning, still no shelter, yet they kept coming. I'm here to address your concerns about the community bus shelter, she said, her tone syrupy. Child safety comes first, don't you agree? It was a slick move, painting me as the bad guy if I resisted. My concerns with you building on my land without permission? I replied coolly. She flipped open her portfolio. There's confusion about property lines. Our records show this as a community easement. Funny, I said, pulling out my phone. Mind if I record this? For clarity. She hesitated but nodded. Please explain again why you think you can build here. The HOA has documentation, she repeated, and the bus shelter was approved unanimously after safety issues at the old stop. What issues? I pressed. She faltered. Visibility and traffic concerns. Reported to the sheriff? County. I'm not familiar with specifics, she admitted. I pointed to my boundary stake. That's been there decades. Your flags are 10 feet inside my line. She pivoted. This is about community, Mr. Parker. The HOA can impose fines, liens, or legal action if homeowners obstruct progress. I'm not in your HOA, I countered. Your property falls under our expanded jurisdiction from last year's county approval, she claimed. A lie, and I had it recorded. Which approval? I asked sweetly. She rattled off a fake file number. Thanks, I said. That's helpful. She mistook my calm for surrender. So you'll cooperate? We'd like to resume tomorrow. I'll review everything and respond, I said. As she left, she warned, fighting us rarely ends well. We have resources you can't imagine. I smiled. She'd just handed me gold. That evening, a notice was taped to my mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Bus shelter obstruction. The next night, I walked into the Oak Ridge Community Center in jeans and a button-up. 60 residents turned to stare. Richard Carter stood at the podium, a stocky man with a fake tan. Mr. Parker joins us, he quipped, as if I'd crashed their party. I sat in back, listening as he spun his tale. The old bus stop was dangerous, my spot was ideal, and I was the selfish holdout. A PowerPoint flashed my driveway, then kids near the old stop, pure theater. He lied about an easement, claimed I'd agreed, then backed out, said I'd threatened workers. I jotted down every falsehood. When he opened the floor, parents griped about safety. A dad called me an obstructionist. Then an elderly woman, Mrs. Edith Grayson, stood with her cane. I've lived here 30 years, before Oak Ridge existed. James Parker's family has farmed that land forever. If he says it's his, I believe him. We're turning into bullies. A few clapped. Carter steamrolled on. Construction resumes with county officials present. I overheard 2 board members plotting to get the zoning guy to backdate permits. They didn't know that guy was me. Back home, I spread out county maps and records. No easement, no jurisdiction, no approval, clean as a whistle. The $75,000 contract went to Pinnacle Builders, owned by Richard's brother, Michael Carter, triple the normal cost. Road plans showed why they picked my land. Building on theirs meant a $200,000 road upgrade they wanted to dodge. HOA fees had jumped 15% to fund the scam. 3 other projects stank of the same corruption. I cataloged every violation, unpermitted work, fraud, conflicts of interest, building an ironclad case. 2 days later, Richard Carter and his lawyer, Stanley Reed, showed up in a luxury sedan. "Got a minute, James?" Carter asked, fake friendly. "This is Stanley Reed, our attorney. Let's clear up this misunderstanding." We sat on my porch. Reed slid over a document, a limited easement, giving them 15 feet of my land for $2,500. My acre was worth $50,000. "This won't work," I said. Carter's mask slipped. "That shelter's going up, one way or another." "A threat?" I asked. Reed oozed, "We have options: eminent domain, nuisance claims, fertilizer, noise. Defending that gets pricey." "So you'll lie if I don't sign?" "Just outlining risks," Reed said. "Sign today," Carter snapped, "or face consequences." "I'll sleep on it," I said. "Now or never," he barked. "Then it's never," I replied. They stormed off, Carter yelling, "We'll see you tomorrow, stay out of the way." Sure enough, workers returned at 7 a.m., a county permits guy in tow to fake approvals. I stayed back, waiting for the HOA meeting that night. The room was packed, Carter, Melissa, and Reed up front with 3 county folks, Dave from Roads, Janet from Public Works, and Ron Miller, a junior inspector from my team. Carter crowed, "The project's on track, county officials agree." Melissa trashed me in a slideshow, calling me a child-endangering recluse. Reed spouted legal nonsense. Then Carter said, "Mr. Parker didn't show." That was my cue. I stood. "I'm here." Gasps. Carter faltered. "Care to speak?" I walked to the podium. "I'm James Parker, owner of Parker Family Farm. What you don't know is I've been the county senior zoning inspector for 15 years. Silence. I laid my ID down. "This project breaks 7 laws. No permits, fake boundaries, no environmental study." Reed tried to cut in. I shut him down. "I'm not done." I exposed the Carter brothers scam, the inflated contract, the road cost dodge. "This isn't safety, it's theft." Carter blustered, "You're conflicted." "I've recused myself and reported this to the ethics board," I said, flashing a cease and desist order. Construction's halted. The room exploded. Ron confirmed, "No approvals came from zoning." Janet added, "No plans hit my desk." Homeowners turned on Carter. Edith Grayson jabbed her cane. "I told you something stank." I left fact sheets, my evidence, and exited as Carter chased me. "You set us up," he snarled. "You tried to steal my land," I said. Sheriff Martinez appeared. "Richard, the county attorney wants you tomorrow." Carter deflated. The fallout was swift. Construction stopped. The board suspended. Carter and cronies probed for fraud. Pinnacle Builders got hit, and the HOA paid to fix my land. Homeowners, led by Edith, rewrote the bylaws with me advising. The county passed the Parker Ordinance, shielding farms from HOA greed. The real bus stop went up on their land, permitted and safe. Carter and 2 others faced charges. Audits uncovered $300,000 in scams. The new HOA apologized, and I got handshakes and bourbon from neighbors. My sign now reads, "No trespassing, zoning inspector lives here." At 5 a.m., I feed the animals, drive past that bus stop, and smile. My grandfather was right. Land's a trust. Sometimes protecting it means fighting dirty and winning clean.